Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Truth. I'm your host, the one you love the most, Niall Hassan, back with a brand new episode here on The Truth. Back not once again with AJ Ponciano, but rather just myself here today. I do apologize, guys. I know you guys do like having AJ on, but the time to record really was just not working out for the both of us to do it combined. So unfortunately, it's just going to be me here today, but I hope you guys are okay with that. It is just a takeaway show, but again, these shows by myself are able to relatively go faster. So it kind of works out both ways. It's kind of one of those things that it's nice to get a second opinion, but it's still going to go faster, hopefully. And we'll be able to get out of here with no sweat, no problem. So that's kind of what we're looking like for this show here today, the week 3, hard to believe takeaways here in the NFL. I am recording this on a Tuesday night. I do post this on a Wednesday morning, and I will record for sure the Thursday night special tomorrow. I'm hoping AJ is going to be able to come on, but who knows about that. So just keep it step by step, and regardless, we'll get that show up for you guys so you guys are good to go and prepared for your upcoming week. For Thursday night, we got a good matchup that we'll talk about tomorrow. And then also on Saturday, you guys will see our week 4 start, sit, sleepers, and busts for Sunday and Monday in the NFL. So how it's going to work today is I'm going to give you my 5 takeaways as well as AJ's 5 takeaways, because he did send me his takeaways. So it'll be good there to get that prepared. And then, like I said, we'll try to just go one at a time, one each. I'll try to elaborate on either his thought process. It will really just kind of be my thought process on it. And so at the end of the day, we'll have 10 takeaways from me. And so let's go ahead and get into it. AJ's first takeaway: Malik Neighbors is on the same level as Jay Jettas and Tyreek Hill. And I can actually get behind this one. Malik Neighbors has absolutely gone off. He's looked great for the Giants, which actually has been one of their only bright spots for the Giants, although they did win last week. So good for the Giants there. But he is the number 1 ranked fantasy wide receiver in ESPN Fantasy right now, averaging 22.8 points per game. That's tremendous. Obviously, a great start to the year. A little slow in week 1, just 11.6, but 28.7, 28.2 last 2 weeks. Tremendous there, right? Malik Neighbors has been able to do it all. On top of that, he's really looked like a tremendous wide receiver, right? Like he is able to catch the ball at high clips. He's able to do everything that you want out of an elite receiver. And all in all, it's been clicking for him. It hasn't been clicking for the Giants, but at least it's been clicking for Malik Neighbors. That was my biggest worry going into the year. It wasn't the talent of Malik Neighbors. It was more the situation that he's in. But it looks to be that he's in a pretty good situation as of now. And I think that's going to continue. Now, is AJ jumping the gun here and saying that he's in the same territory as Jay Jets and Tyreek Hill? Yes, I do believe that he's jumping the gun on that a little bit. But he's at least shown the potentials. And hey, I believe he did come from a school called Louisiana State University. Justin Jefferson also did as well. Similarities, same player, who knows? But he's on the same trajectory, at least a good start. The biggest thing is, can he sustain that? And if there's a quarterback change either this year or next year in the draft, which probably for sure will happen, is he able to sustain that success moving forward? But he looks tremendous right now, proving my skepticism wrong, at least for the moment. And it wasn't, again, skepticism of him. It was skepticism as the Giants as a whole. My first takeaway: it's time to worry about top tier tight ends. I know last week I said that it's not really time to worry, but week 3 is kind of the cutoff for me. Guys like Kelsey, Laporta, Andrews got 0 last week. I mean, these were, again, mainly Kelsey and Andrews the past couple of years, but Laporta last year, you add him to the mix. These were 3 top tier receivers, or tight ends, I should say, and they've basically done nothing. Right, Travis Kelsey right now is currently ranked the 22nd positioned ranked tight end, 6.4, 1.6, and 7.0. Mark Andrews, obviously very dismal numbers. And then Sam Laporta as a whole, as a tight end, 18th right now in tight ends, with 8.5, 3.3, and 5.6. And again, when you look at this position, ranked 18, 22, and I don't even want to know what Andrews is. I'll look him up anyways. That's for tight ends. And you basically have 32 tight ends on the team, unless you're the Ravens and kind of throw in Isaiah Likely. Mark Andrews is a 29th ranked position tight end. It's time to worry about these guys. Now, it'd be hard to trade them unless you're a guy like me that likes trading for stars that either haven't, done successful yet this year or have shown success in the past. It's easy for me to accept those trades because of what they've been able to do, but it's kind of hard to trade low. Like, not many people are probably like, ooh, I'm excited about Kelsey. Goddard had 10 catches, 97 yards, 20-some points last week. I mean, Dallas Goedert, a guy that I was talking about that was going to do nothing. So it's time to worry about top-tier tight ends. It is at this point. But I don't think you can really sell them. If you're able to sell them and get good value back because you still want to get good value, then do it. I'm going to hold on to them, but not looking too good for them at the moment. AJ's second takeaway: the Panthers are back. Yes, the Panthers are back. No, frauds. I mean, come on. Andy Dalton had a good week. Okay, good for him, right? I mean, he was kind of been waiting to go out there, and I saw a funny tweet or funny post or something that was funny and made me laugh, where the Panthers thought that they had their franchise quarterback. They were wondering, that the weapons they brought around Bryce Young, or why were they so bad? And then they realized it wasn't the weapons around Bryce Young; it was Bryce Young. In all seriousness, I do wish Bryce Young the success. It's always hard for a young quarterback to get in the league and have success from the get-go. And obviously, he hasn't been able to have the success yet. I hope it does come for him. A tremendous dude on and off the field. From everything that I've heard, comes up from a very prestigious university, obviously in Alabama, who produces some great quarterbacks and maybe some not so great quarterbacks as well. But I do think there's a lot of potential for him. It is saying something, the fact that I think 4 teams called to see about trading for Bryce Young, and they turned them all down. So there is still hope for Bryce Young, especially in those dynasty formats. But Andy Dalton looked good. I think it was kind of fluky, though. I got to see at least one more, maybe 2 more weeks of Andy Dalton to be jumping on the train. But now it kind of opens up the door for the Panthers wide receivers fantasy value. That's running backs, wide receivers as well, particularly guys like Xavier Legette with Adam Thielen hitting the IR. So there's some things to look out for the Panthers, but at least the wide receiver game, which most people are probably concerned about, seems to be opening up. And again, quarterback play, depending on how much you view Andy Dalton as a guy that could be a successful component for you moving forward in the weeks to come. My second takeaway is Sam Darnold is a QB option. Okay, Sam Darnold, maybe Kevin O'Connell, the QB whisperer. I know they say Dave Canales was, but KOC's done a really good job of turning Darnold's not only career around, but his fantasy trajectory as well. Darnold was a guy that wasn't drafted in any leagues. I mean, let's be honest. Who was drafting Sam Darnold unless you're in a 16 or so team format? Now he's the 4th ranked position quarterback. And again, early in the year, so it's hard to gauge, but he's had a good amount of success as far as fantasy value and overall NFL value is concerned. Every week he's gotten better and better. I mean, he's completed 19 passes in week 1, 17 in 2 and 3, but his points have gone 14.6, 20, and 23.2, so he's progressing. Is 23.2 probably his ceiling? Yes and no. He had 4 touchdowns for 181 yards. I think his yards could definitely go up. It was his season low. But touchdowns, you're probably not going to get much more than 4 touchdowns a game, right? And who knows? I mean, he does show some rushing value at times. Last week, 5 carries for 32 yards. But he's one of those guys that kind of reminds me of a Kirk Cousins, coincidentally enough, or guys that kind of just do enough, maybe like a Rodgers. But there is some risk, obviously. If you want a guy that's a low-budget quarterback, I think Sam Darnold's your guy. It'll be even helpful for him, more helpful for him when guys like Jordan Addison come back from injury, when TJ Hawkinson comes back from injury. I personally picked him up in one of my leagues just because I wanted a good backup quarterback, and I feel like Sam Darnold is that option. It could be that option for you moving forward. AJ's third takeaway is Purdy ain't shit without his weapons. Sorry for cussing. Look, Purdy, honestly, it's a little bit confusing to me why AJ put this, because I would have, and I was talking with one of my teammates about this actually yesterday. I would disagree with this take now. Before, I would 100% agree that Brock Purdy was a system quarterback and wouldn't be good without Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, or really being in the 49ers offense as a whole. But last week, he actually did pretty well. 22 for 30, 292 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, but 10 carries for 41 yards. He had 3 carries combined in weeks 1 and 2, 10 carries for 41 yards. But on top of that, I was watching that game. He made some tremendous throws. The reason why they lost was not because of Brock Purdy. He got Jawan Jennings involved. I believe Jawan Jennings had all 3 touchdowns, but 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, 10 carries, 41 yards, 25.7 fantasy points. I'm taking that every day of the week. Have him in one of my leagues. I was super high on him going into the year. Now, granted, I was expecting a fully healthy Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel. I was expecting Brandon Ayuk to not fade away after signing his massive contract, and they all haven't worked. So clearly something's up, but Brock Purdy's done enough. And I think every year Brock Purdy's progressed. Obviously, 2 years ago, his rookie year, or jumping into the mix there, he would not have had the success that he had last week if it was his rookie season, or even last year for that matter. But every year he's really stepped up to the plate and really proved people wrong. Not only that he's not a system quarterback, but he's a good quarterback, in fact, and a guy that could thrive without having his weapons. Now, again, I'll still hold on to the reservation that he goes to a different team, different system, with not as much firepower as the 49ers do when they are fully healthy. Then I'll really know if Brock Purdy is legit. But from what I've seen, and I'm a big Brock Purdy hater because I'm an Iowa fan, so him playing at Iowa State, watching for 4 years, I think I have a fairness to hate on him. But I'm not hating him on him, especially after this week, and I'm still really high on Brock Purdy. So I do disagree with that, actually. So my third takeaway is kind of ironic. It would have worked better with AJ's second takeaway, but it's be patient on Andy Dalton, okay? Andy Dalton obviously just kind of burst into the scene last week. I think some people were expecting it, Maybe not to the level that he had, right? I mean, the success that he had last week, but all in all, he had a good amount of success. He had 24.5 fantasy points last week, 319 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. I think a lot of this too happens because Andy Dalton was, or I guess the Panthers were so bad that they could only go up, right? Andy Dalton's what, 36, 37, obviously way past the prime of his career. I think he could be a good managed quarterback, but he kind of reminds me of like a Gardner Minshew, a veteran that's not going to blow it off the stat sheet. He's going to have those 1 or 2 really great weeks, and the rest are just going to be average. I expect him to be in the 11 to 13, even maybe 14-point range per week. I think he's got weapons to throw to. Losing Thielen does hurt. He does have guys like Xavier Legette that could get some mix in, Deontay Johnson, guys out of the backfield. But I think the biggest thing with Dalton is you got to give it at least one more week. Now, if you don't have another quarterback option, then yeah, maybe go out and pick up a guy like Andy Dalton and start him, because obviously he showed what he could do. But I think that's his ceiling there at 24.5 points per game, which is really good for a quarterback. Don't get me wrong, especially in today's day and age, especially with how the quarterbacks are playing in general. But I don't think you should necessarily jump the gun and, expect Andy Dalton to be your lifesaver for your fantasy team. I think he could help and contribute, but give it another week and maybe we'll revisit this takeaway. Or I'll say I told you so, and you should have waited on Andy Dalton to begin with. AJ, Vikings are, I don't know why I said that. AJ's fourth takeaway. Vikings are the 3-0 team that looks like a 3-0 team. And this is going for all assets, obviously more focused on the NFL, but for fantasy as well. I mean, Justin Jefferson feels like he's had a quiet start to the year, but Sam Darnold's had success. Aaron Jones has had success. Jalen Naylor had success. I mean, the Vikings as a whole, they're my Vikings. And he probably put this in there just because I'm a Vikings fan, but they've looked really good, right? And I'll try to stick to the fantasy component of it, but guys are getting the reps. I mean, the Vikings defense, I believe, is the number one ranked defense right now in fantasy. That's saying something. Obviously, it's going to change, right? I mean, they're not going to be the number one defense by season's end, but I drafted them in one of my leagues just for fun, and they're the number one defense right now, so I'm really glad I did. Is that going to change? Probably, but Brian Flores right now, what he's scheming on the defensive side is phenomenal. But the Vikings, again, they look like a 3-0 team in the NFL. They look like a 3-0 team in fantasy, so definitely got to be excited about that. My fourth takeaway is Tyreek CeeDee Lamb problems, right? I mean, this is kind of expected for Tyreek. I mean, just been a weird year for Tyreek, at least to start the year. Obviously, last week, I believe he had 7 fantasy points, which is not like the Tyreek we know. Week 1 had the 26, and week 2 had 6.6 against Buffalo Thursday night. So it helps or hurts him that he doesn't have his quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, but hopefully they can figure that out, because I have a couple of shares of Tyreek Hill, and it's really bugging me. That one is kind of it's a tough situation to be in. Kind of similarly to Kelsey and Laporta, not as bad, but if you're able to sell a guy like Hill and get some good value back, I would do so. But if you have him and you're kind of stuck with him, it's Tyreek Hill. He's my number one fantasy wide receiver by season's end. I think they're going to get either Skylar Thompson going, some other quarterbacks in the mix. I can't think of the guy, Tim Boyle, I think it was, that came in for Skylar Thompson when he got injured. But yeah, they're going to find a way to get it to work. I wish they would do like some more screens and stuff like that, just because I think he's one of those guys that would thrive really well in the open field. And I think that's going to lead them to more success when they're able to do that. But regardless, he's going to get the ball. CeeDee Lamb on the other side has had a little bit of a quiet year. Granted, he's put up some good numbers, 13.6, 19, and 8.7. But we saw the spat that he had with Dak Prescott on the sideline. It just was not a pretty sight to see. It's ironic that guys that sign these massive contract extensions just don't have the same success that they did before. Now, I know there's a more underlying issue, but CeeDee Lamb has the highest receptions on the year is 5. That's not the CeeDee Lamb that we're expecting. Again, similar position. It's a better position for him because he's got his quarterback. He's had success in the past this season, that I'm not like freaking out, but it is something to keep your eye on moving forward, because this could be something that turns into something deeper, especially since the problems have already been opened with CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott, and then Tyreek Hill without a quarterback. Again, guys that you want to hold on to just because they're big name guys, but have not been performing to the level that you've expected or were expecting going into the fantasy season. AJ's final take is Jaden Daniels is doing what CJ Stroud did last year. Jaden Daniels looked phenomenal last night in that game against the Bengals, like phenomenal. Running, throwing, everything. He's the second ranked fantasy position quarterback in football right now. Had 28 points in week 3 and week 1, had the 13 in week 2, but had his first 2 passing touchdowns on the year. Obviously had another rushing touchdown. He's carried for at least 10 carries in each of his 3 games. His rushing upside is tremendous. He's in a really good position, and this is something that's really exciting for a lot of Jaden Daniels fantasy owners. I mean, we knew the upside was there, right? Jaden Daniels has obviously had good amount of success in college. The biggest thing was, could we translate that to the NFL and have the same success? And he's done a really good job of that. The Commanders' offense looks like a different breed of offense. They look like they actually want to go play week in and week out. So there's been a lot of things moving in the right direction with Jane Daniels. And that's a tribute to not only Dan Quinn, even though he's more of a defensive guy, but Cliff Kingsbury, who worked with a similar guy in Kyler Murray, who's now the offensive coordinator here in Washington. So it's a win-win for Jane Daniels. He's looked good. The biggest thing is, can he sustain that? He does take a lot, does take a lot of hits, which might not really impact you as far as redraft leagues are concerned, but would definitely impact you for dynasty. Now, if they do a similar situation which they did with RG3, great rookie year, he continues to get hits and he gets played with injuries, it could be a troublesome situation. But especially in this matchup, he's going against Arizona on the road. It's Arizona on the road, don't get me wrong, but it's a favorable matchup in my opinion. I think he's going to continue to get that rushing value, and regardless if he doesn't do a good job passing the football, he's going to have tremendous rushing value that's going to make up for it. He's already had good success throwing the football, an 80% completion percentage, 2 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. That's a big one. So hopefully he's able to do that moving forward. And then my final takeaway is not to panic on Ramondre. I mean, Ramondre had a very dismal week, right? 0.3 fantasy points. It's like the Bijan headache game all over again. Had a good week 1 and a good week 2, and then obviously slowed down in week 3. It is partially not necessarily his fault. It's the scheme that the Patriots ran. In weeks 1 and 2, they were really running the football and having success with it. They fell behind early in this game against the Jets, and the Jets' run defense, in my opinion, is the best in the league, and I've said that from the get-go. So you get to the point where you start to trail, and it starts to get tough and difficult, and that's where you run into problems. And that's where he ran into problems. That's why he had 0.3 fantasy points. It didn't help that he lost a fumble, things like that. But not to panic on Ramondre. It doesn't get easier for him as he goes into San Francisco, which is going to be a very difficult game. But I think they're going to find a way to get him involved, and they do get him involved in the rushing game. I have Ramondre in a couple leagues, and I wanted to throw that out there. I'm not panicking about Ramondre, so you shouldn't as well. Thank you guys for listening to another episode here on The Truth. If you guys did enjoy it, make sure you follow The Truth on Twitter at TheTruthAs1 to stay up to date with the latest information regarding The Truth, including podcast dates, podcast uploads, and other important information you don't want to miss. Make sure you guys also follow The Truth on Instagram and TikTok at the.tt.truth. Are you looking to find a drink that offers peak hydration, raises your energy levels, speeds up your recovery, and keeps your mind sharp through focus and memory? Look no further than Acid Rainwater. I'm excited to partner with Bloodline Sports AZ and Acid Rainwater, which focuses on peak hydration and productivity, while also maintaining an ecosystem-friendly product. Use code HESSON15, that's HESSON15 for 15% off every purchase. As always, I'm your host, the one you love the most, Niall Hesson, not joined by AJ Ponciano. Hopefully he's able to come back tomorrow. But until next time, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you guys in the next show. Take care, and good night.